Well, hello there. My name is Mark Miles. I absolutely love helping trainers, presenters really take their delivery to the next level. And in today's video, I want to share with you some power phrases that you can use to take engagement on an online session to the next level, to really get the maximum level of engagement from your participants. You see, what we often find is that when people go from the face to face environment to delivering online, what they often do is, for some strange reason, suddenly become very static. So in the face-to-face environment, it's very dynamic for them. But as soon as it goes online, suddenly they get stilted, they get stuck. It's like, how do I create engagement with my learners and how do I get everyone following along? And a lot of experienced trainers really struggle with this. So in today's video, I want to share with you some really great phrases that you can implement, integrate, and really be using on a consistent basis to make sure that your learners are fully brought into your session, be part of your session, and really love the training content that you deliver to them because they know that they are part of the experience. You see, we don't want to create entertainment, so to speak. We want to create integrated learning experiences for our learners. And I want to share with you some phrases that you can use to really take your online delivery or experience to the next level. So definitely get ready, grab a pen, and get ready to write because these are the secret sources. And I'm really even hesitant to really share these with you, but this is the secret sauce to presenting well online. Okay. So definitely get a pen, get ready to write. So the first one is, as many of you would know, does that make sense? Does that make sense? Okay. So we often use that expression in the face-to-face environment. We use it quite regularly, right? We share a point, and then we say, does that make sense? No different to the online environment. And what I highly suggest that you do is get in the habit of saying, does that make sense? And then wait for a response and literally tell people, if that makes sense, go ahead in the chat box, type makes sense. Or if that makes sense to you, type yes in the chat box and get a response from your audience and get them to respond in that chat box. All right. You're going to find such a dynamic shift when you actually wait for a response and expect a response. Okay. Do not move on until people have actually responded. Okay. So the first key expression is, does that make sense? All right. It's one that we use all the time in training and presenting. Second one, a second one is one of my favorites, and I use this a lot in the face-to-face environment, and I now want to encourage you to use it in the online environment as well. Now, that expression is, grab a pen and write this down. Grab a pen and write this down. Grab a pen and write this down. Now, this is the expression, grab a pen and write this down, that you can petter throughout your entire presentation to really encourage people to take away key moments and key things from what you are delivering and expect them to be taking notes. And then at different periods of time, get them to share what they've actually written down. And as you do that, there's going to become an expectation that they naturally need to follow along and listen up to what you're saying. Okay. So the second one is, grab a pen and write this down. Now, that's not one that I use so often in the online environment, but I'll definitely use it if I want them to be taking notes on something I've said, knowing that I'm going to activate that thing later on in a different activity or whatever it might be. Now, the next one of my favorites, number three, one of my absolute favorites is used by the masters out there, but you just don't hear it. Now, the phrase is, just so I know that you've got that, type X in the chat box. The secret sauce. Just so I know that you've got the word love, type the word love in the chat box. Or just so I know that you've got that, type tree into the chat box. It could be anything at all. It could be the thing that you really want them to remember, or the topic, or the secret. So let's go. Just so I know that you've got that, type the letter E into the chat box for engagement. Type the letter E into the chat box, all right? Or just so I know that you've got that, type conscious communication into the chat box. Just so I know that you've got that, type limiting belief into the chat box. It could be anything at all, but I really want to encourage you, start using the expression. Just so I know that you've got that, type X into the chat box. Whatever your thing is that you're about to talk about, or that you are talking about, or that you really want to drive home, get people to type that thing into the chat box. Just so I know that you've got that, type thing into, like, just having some fun there, folks, but be regularly using that expression. Just so I know that you've got that, type into the chat box. Okay. Now, next one, if you want to go a little bit advanced, you can actually use just the first letter of the word, and you can say, do me a favor, type the capital E into the chat box for me for engagement. Okay, so you can actually get people to use just the first letter of the word. So you can say, do me a favor and type the word blah into the chat box, or do me a favor and type capital E into the chat box. Okay, however you want to phrase it, totally up to you, but you need to encourage people putting words or things into the chat box, and do that as regularly as possible. Now, next one, very strategic, very advanced, but another way to get responses into the chat box is, I don't know if you can relate to this situation, but type a yes in the chat box if this has ever happened to you. You've gone off and you've been to, and then you go into a story. Type a yes if that's ever happened to you. Or, I don't know if you can relate. I don't know. Have you ever felt like XYZ, XYZ? Type a yes in the chat box if you ever felt that. Or, I don't know if you've ever done this, but type a yes in the chat box if you've ever done this. Okay. So again, we're using an opening phrase to elicit a response back into that chat box. Okay. Now, the final one that I'll share with you is when you want to deliver on chunks of three. And the rule of three is something that we all know about as trainers, presenters, and workshop facilitators. But what you can do is say the expression, what were those three things again? So, for example, you could say apple, banana, orange. What were those three things again? Type in the chat box. What were those three things? And you can pose it back to the group. So maybe you've got a fantastic model that you want to share that's broken into 3 bits or maybe 4 bits. Could be anything at all. And you can say the model is blah, blah, blah. So just so I know that you got that, what were those 3 components of the model again? Type those components into the chat box for me. You see, all of these powerful phrases that we use here are to elicit a response, and the construct is that you do not move on until the people have responded into the chat box. And you literally stand there and wait until people have responded, okay? So if you want to take a static training session and make it dynamic, make it engaging, make it exciting, all you need to do is start to getting the discipline of using these phrases, and you're going to find that audience engagement goes through the roof. People are going to find that time goes so quickly, and it's such an interactive experience as opposed to just you reading off some slides and not really much of a dynamic experience where people feel like it was really worth their time. Okay. So hopefully you got something out of that video. Hopefully you grabbed a pen and wrote some of those phrases down. And I'm really hesitant to share some of that information there with you because that's my secret sauce. If you implement that secret sauce, guess what? You're going to find online delivery gets so much more exciting, so much more fun, and it's going to be something that's just easy and effortlessly for you to be able to do and implement as you go out there and share your message. Hopefully you definitely like, comment, and share the video. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.